Taylor Swift has infiltrated one of our most celebrated man caves.
I think we all know that if there's one thing that male sports fans want to see, it's more of me.
Taylor Swift is using her boyfriend and this immensely popular podcast.
Taylor Swift breaking her silence about Wendy Williams is one of those moments nobody thought they would ever see. For years, Taylor has carefully chosen when and how to speak, often letting her music or subtle gestures carry her message rather than confronting things head-on.
Claim from Wendy Williams' guardianship that she is indeed suffering from dementia. This is what they came out and said, that this was the results that they got back from the medical evaluation that she went through. Well, that claim is not sitting well with Wendy or her attorney, Joe Tacopina.
Be right back.
The claim from Wendy Williams' guardianship that she is indeed suffering from dementia. This is what they came out and said, that this was the results that they got back from the medical evaluation that she went through. Well, that claim is not sitting well with Wendy or her attorney, Joe Tacopina, who gave us his reaction to these, I say, alleged test results. I believe that there were test results.
Yeah.
What Joe isn't buying is what the actual results were.
He's saying that there's some bias on the part of the other side here.
The Guardian.
The Guardians, because they hired their own doctors to perform the tests, and he's also saying that he and Wendy have not received the results of those tests, and they deal with Wendy's, cognitive. What her cognitive abilities are, right.
And this is what Joe told us. He said, "Let me be clear: the claim is false and is being spread by a party with a vested interest in keeping Wendy trapped under this excessive and restrictive guardianship." So he didn't say who it is, but you can. It's pretty clear, very thinly veiled, pointing in the direction of the guardianship. More to come from that battle.
But now, after years of holding back, she has decided to finally address the disturbing and shocking truths about Wendy Williams that she has been carrying inside. What Taylor revealed was not just personal, it was deeply unsettling, and it painted a picture of pain, betrayal, and relentless targeting that fans never fully realized she endured. From the very beginning of her rise, Taylor Swift was a favorite topic for Wendy Williams. As soon as Taylor started breaking into mainstream success, Wendy used her platform to comment on every aspect of her life, her dating history, her image, her personality, her music, even her friendships. To Wendy, Taylor was a convenient punchline, someone she could mock to get laughs or ratings. Over time, these little digs added up to something much darker. Taylor reveals that behind closed doors, those constant attacks wore her down. She admits that Wendy's cruel remarks were not harmless banter, but weapons that cut into her confidence, into her
14 Grammy Awards and is the only artist in the history to win Album of the Year 4 times. Good God, Kelsey, just introduced the guest already. Taylor Swift! Who? Oh, Taylor Swift on the Kelsey Bros podcast. That's cool, right, everyone?
As men, our last bastion of solace has been infiltrated.
And she is thumbing her nose at all sports fans.
You guys have a lot of male sports fans that I think we all know that if there's one thing that male sports fans want to see in their spaces and on their screens, it's more of me.
It's so good.
There's just flipped us all off. She knows she's doing it.
Yeah, because you guys are bitch-ass babies. She's calling you guys out. I'll say it before you guys say it.
You guys ruined everything.
She had the audacity to go to her boyfriend's games, and now she's coming for the podcast.
They even said she was the most requested guest.
Swifties are their listeners.
No, their listeners are manly men who do manly things. Stand up for the men, Travis.
Such a nice color on you.
Yes, I know. It's the color of your eyes, sweetie.
Jesus. Anyway, hell of a way to promote the new album. Speaking of which.
How nervous is Blake right now?
Whether there's an actual song about Blake Lively, Swifties will think there's a song about Blake Lively.
No, she'll make some reference to a lively conversation or something, and
This just in, there's a lively conversation.
No.
Whoa. You were wading into Derek territory. That was.
He was waiting for me to harmonize.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Travis. And of course, thank you, Taylor Swift!
Sense of safety, and into the way the world saw her. The most disturbing part of Taylor's revelations is that Wendy seemed to take particular joy in tearing her down when she was at her most vulnerable. When the entire world turned on Taylor during the infamous feud with Kanye West and Kim Kardashian, Wendy didn't just join the pile-on, she magnified it. Taylor recalls watching clips of Wendy calling her fake, manipulative, and a snake, all while she was already fighting to hold herself together in the midst of a public character assassination. Taylor admits that she was left in tears more nights than she could count, and she now sees that Wendy's role in that storm was not just commentary, it was gasoline poured on an already raging fire. Taylor explains that Wendy wasn't simply a critic doing her job, but someone who targeted her in ways that felt obsessive and personal. She notes how Wendy's comments about her always seemed to have an edge, as if there was resentment underneath. And now, looking back, Taylor believes Wendy resented her youth, her power, her success.
Ever works out for the individual. So I can't imagine, even if, Taylor Swift, loves Blake Lively to death, they're best friends, thick and thin. I can't imagine that she'd want to get involved in this mess because it is a mess. It is lawsuit after lawsuit. This person suing this one, this person suing this one. And I wouldn't put it past Justin Baldoni's lawyer put together enough stuff to fire off something against Taylor Swift if Taylor Swift all of a sudden changes her tune and says, I knew I was going to the house and I knew I was going to discuss these things. I honestly think Taylor Swift didn't know what was going on. I think she was tugged into this thing by Blake Lively. And like I said, the texts speak for themselves. And lawsuits, by the way, just not to get off subject, but lawsuits have taken such a turn with smartphones, with emails, with texting, with phone calls. It is so easy to trace and find out and look at things and determine where people were even from your phone to see if they were in the same position at the same time, or if Taylor Swift was downstairs at a coffee shop waiting to come upstairs. All these different things are so discoverable. It's hard to avoid.
You mentioned a mess, because I wanted to make a little point of clarity with you here, because I wanted to ask this more broadly. The claim that she took control of the movie, Blake Lively. The idea would be, she weaponized false allegations against Justin Baldoni to get her way. And when you think about something like that, I just want to go into something from the amended complaint in this case and then want your perspective. So Baldoni's team alleges, quote, ignoring the director's vision for her character and disposing of the weeks of effort and creativity spent by the wardrobe team on shopping and carefully crafting her wardrobe, Lively sent hundreds of images to the film's costume designer, including into the late hours of the evening, depicting the style of wardrobe she wanted for her character. The costume designer had to reshop Lively's wardrobe, far exceeding the allocated budget and diverting time and resources while also preparing wardrobes for the rest of the cast. At one point, Lively insisted that her character had money and could afford $5,000 shoes, despite being a fledgling small business owner. This forced Baldoni to rethink the entire script that had been in the works for well over a year. It was approved by both Sony and Wayfair, a script that Wayfair had commissioned multiple drafts of, incorporated countless notes, including input from the book's author, Colleen Hoover. The wardrobe budget ballooned. Now, you hear that, but then People magazine, reported that a source close to Blake Lively said being upset about the wardrobe in a movie is not a legal claim, but sexual harassment absolutely is. Unlike Baldoni's efforts to confuse and distract with an irrelevant sideshow, Blake has filed serious, credible allegations that she was sexually harassed, spoke out and took steps to stop the harassment, and then was retaliated against. And that's the question I have for you, Bradford. The allegations, she took control of the movie, she was ballooning it up, she was changing the script, the wardrobe, he felt pressured to accept her demands. How exactly is that relevant and respond to the direct claims of sexual harassment and retaliation?
Okay, it doesn't, right? It is trying to undermine her credibility, which is the point that they're getting at, right? The fact of whether or not this is the legality of her wanting to change her dress to a different dress, that is of no consequence. What he's essentially saying is, number one is it will undermine her credibility as to the sexual harassment things, with the
success and her ability to control her own career in ways Wendy herself never could. Taylor describes this as disturbing, because what the public saw as entertainment was in fact an adult woman using her platform to relentlessly bully another woman who was still in her 20s, still trying to navigate fame, still figuring out who she was under the brightest spotlight imaginable. And while Taylor stayed silent at the time, She now admits that silence came at a cost. The more she stayed quiet, the more Wendy doubled down. Taylor remembers watching segments where Wendy would mock her relationships, dismiss her achievements, and laugh at her as if she were a joke. Taylor reveals that it left her feeling powerless, because she knew that no matter what she said, Wendy would twist it, and the public would eat it up. It became a cycle of cruelty that Taylor could not escape, and the weight of it pushed her into darker creative spaces. She says that the Reputation album was born from that pain, from feeling like the whole world hated her, from realizing that she could no longer rely on her innocence or her good girl image to protect her, and Wendy's voice, in Taylor's mind, was part of that chorus of hate. But the most shocking part of Taylor's revelations is not just the pain Wendy
Swin of this entire day.
Big points. Yeah,
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Okay, so let me start here. Do you think it is likely that Taylor Swift and Hugh Jackman are about to be subpoenaed?
They'll be subpoenaed. Whether they actually have to testify is another story. I mean, I'm sure they have sophisticated counsel. They're going to battle these subpoenas. They're going to file what's called motions to quash their subpoenas and prevent the forced testimony. That'll be mostly based on relevance. Now, there's entirely the possibility that these individuals have already agreed to testify, and the subpoenas are just a formality. You know, Taylor Swift was apparently friends with Blake Lively. It's unclear if they're still friends or if it's more of an icy relationship now. Usually, you have to subpoena a party anyway to get them to testify. So it could be, like I said, a formality, or there could be a issue in that relationship requiring the subpoenas. And celebrities don't just show up to subpoenas that easily. It requires quite a bit of coordination with their respective counsel. So they're not going to be coming to testify anytime soon.
I just want to follow up on that. So there are situations, right, where they could have to sit for a deposition, but it doesn't necessarily mean they'd have to testify at trial, right? I mean, it seems to me that the reason you would need a deposition is to say, what do you know? What do you not know? That's your first discovery, right? That's your first. You might have an idea of what the knowledge they have, but it feels to me that they want to know their connections to that infamous penthouse meeting, Deadpool and Wolverine. I feel like the only way they'd really get that information is from a deposition. But it's interesting you talk about the formality. Do you anticipate a situation where they will have to sit for a pretrial deposition, provide information, but they might not have to testify? Or again, like you said, no deposition and they just testify for the first time at trial? Talk to us about that.
Very unlikely that they testify for the first time at trial. Lawyers are risk averse by nature. You want to know what someone's going to say before you get them on the stand. But typically, when you depose somebody, you're anticipating needing them for trial as well. So you're trying to limit and understand the scope of their testimony through the pretrial deposition.
If they fight the subpoenas, like you mentioned, how long can that fight go on for?
A very long time, many months. Courts are backed up. So to get a hearing date for, as I mentioned, what's called a motion to quash could be, many months out. So it's not an immediate thing. First, the subpoena goes out. You have a certain amount of time to respond to it. And then the process goes to motion practice in court with a hearing potentially pushed out many months.
How much would we see? What do I mean by that? If they're subpoenaed, will we know about that? If they file paperwork to quash the subpoena, I'm sure there's a chance we might be able to see that. And also, if there is a deposition, if a recorded deposition
caused, it's the truth about why Taylor thinks Wendy targeted her in the first place. According to Taylor, Wendy had a pattern. She went after successful women who were independent, outspoken, and unafraid to take control of their careers. Taylor recalls how Wendy tore into Beyoncé, how she mocked Mariah Carey, how she dismissed Britney Spears at her lowest point. To Taylor, this wasn't random gossip, it was a disturbing reflection of Wendy's bitterness toward women who had what she didn't. Taylor says she eventually realized Wendy wasn't critiquing her because she disliked her music or her personality, she was critiquing her because she embodied something Wendy couldn't be: young, celebrated, adored, and powerful in her own right. Taylor also revealed the toll this took on her mental health. For years she put on a brave face, but privately she says she felt like she was drowning under the constant scrutiny. Wendy's voice became a symbol of that scrutiny. A reminder that no matter how hard she worked, no matter how many Grammys she won or records she broke, she would always be mocked by people who refused to see her as anything more than a caricature. She admits there were times she questioned whether she should even continue making music, times she felt like disappearing entirely, and through it all, Wendy was there, taking shots, laughing at her pain, turning her life into a spectacle. Fans are stunned by Taylor's honesty, because this is the side of her story she has never shared before. They knew the media was cruel, they knew the public was brutal, but hearing Taylor name Wendy Williams specifically as a source of that cruelty is shocking. Clips of Wendy mocking Taylor over the years are now resurfacing online, and people are horrified to see how relentless it really was. Many are saying that Wendy's so-called entertainment was in fact bullying, and that Taylor's story proves how dangerous that culture was. In her shocking revelations, Taylor admitted that Wendy's words weren't just gossip, they cut deep. They contributed to the media storm that nearly broke her during her 2016 downfall. When the world seemed to turn on Taylor, Wendy was right there fueling the fire, mocking her on television, encouraging the narrative that Taylor was manipulative and fake. And while Taylor stayed silent at the time, she now reveals that those words haunted her. She says Wendy's constant attacks played a role in her anxiety, in her retreat from the spotlight, and in the darker songs she began
taken. Any chance we'd be able to see it?
Unfortunately not. I wish for our entertainment purposes, right? But the motion to quash is public. You'll see that. The deposition itself, I would assume that that's going to be under protective order. So even, leaks are probably not going to happen of video or, the transcripts from those depositions. So that part is unlikely. Now, everything in this case has been leaked and the judge has reprimanded both parties on that. So there's entirely still the possibility that there's snippets here and there, but I wouldn't anticipate that. But, we'll get, a glimpse of are Taylor Swift and Blake Lively close enough, and whose witness really is she? Is she being subpoenaed by Baldoni? Is she being subpoenaed by Lively? If she's being subpoenaed by Lively and she fights it, that might show there's an issue in that relationship, right?
That's interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah, because it seems right now, Blake Lively didn't bring her into the conversation. It was Justin Baldoni,
right.
By the way, he brought Hugh Jackman into it as well. I mentioned it before, and again, I'll just reiterate. The idea Taylor Swift was allegedly used by Blake Lively to pressure Justin Baldoni into accepting Lively's rewrites of a scene. Hugh Jackman starred with Ryan Reynolds in Deadpool and Wolverine. Was there a character in that movie that was based on Justin Baldoni to make fun of him? Hugh Jackman attended the It Ends With Us premiere, which became a whole issue because Baldoni has basically alleged he and his family and friends were relegated to the basement. You think these two individuals, these high-power celebrities, you think they'd actually provide relevant testimony in this case? You think they matter enough to this case?
I don't. I think it's a bit harassing, and I think that's absolutely the argument that the attorneys for Swift and Jackman are going to make, that any benefit or any relevance to their testimony is far outweighed to the harassing nature and the burden placed on these individuals who are touring around the world, traveling all around the world, working to appear potentially in person, depending on how the lawyers want to testify. I think Taylor could be a little bit more relevant than Hugh Jackman's. The allegation about satirizing Baldoni's character in a movie, I don't think is as strong and to the crux of kind of all the legal issues of the rewrites involved with Lively and getting Swift's opinion on that and help with that.
So what would you advise Taylor Swift and Hugh Jackman if you were representing them right now?
Yeah, continue to say nothing. No one's winning in this PR battle between Baldoni and Lively.
Writing during her Reputation era. Taylor doesn't stop at her own experience. She calls out the larger pattern of how Wendy used her platform, not just against her but against countless other women in the industry. She points out how Wendy thrived on tearing people down, profiting from their pain, and building a brand on negativity. Taylor describes it as disturbing that for years, audiences cheered for this, laughed at it, and encouraged it, never realizing the damage it caused behind the scenes. And she makes it clear that while Wendy's life has spiraled in recent years, she is not speaking now to kick someone when they're down, she is speaking to tell the truth, to finally share what it was like to be one of Wendy's favorite targets, and to reclaim the narrative after years of silence. This revelation has exploded across social media. Swifties are rallying behind Taylor, praising her for finally speaking out and dragging Wendy for the way she treated her. Old interviews and clips are going viral, with fans analyzing just how deep Wendy's cruelty went. And the industry is forced to confront an uncomfortable truth. The very media figures who built careers out of gossip and ridicule often left lasting scars on the people they mocked. Taylor's story proves that words do damage, and sometimes that damage lasts for years. Taylor Swift breaking her silence is not just about settling old scores, it's about exposing a culture of cruelty that went unchecked for too long. She has shown that even the strongest, most successful stars can be deeply affected by constant attacks, and that what looks like harmless commentary can in fact be devastating. The disturbing truth she revealed about Wendy Williams is that behind the laughter, behind the gossip, behind the television spectacle, there was real harm being done, and Taylor is finally refusing to let that be swept under the rug. In the end, this revelation changes everything. It reshapes the way people see Wendy Williams. It deepens the understanding of Taylor Swift's struggles, and it forces everyone to reckon with the cost of entertainment built on cruelty. Taylor has once again proven that her voice carries power, and when she chooses to speak, the world listens. And now that she has revealed the disturbing truths about Wendy Williams, there is no going back. The silence is broken, the truth is out, and the world can never look at either of them the same way again.